The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to, create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana. Because
you just said that you're creating
a story. Public policy.
Sir, you just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not accurate.
Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it.
So today, folks, we have yet another example of the media accusing Trump and his supporters of quote-unquote inciting violence, except given today's events, it's an even more ironic situation. And it's very interesting because, as you saw in that opening clip, today we're just going to do a simple video reacting to the JD Vance interview recently with Dana Bash. And then what transpired, as you may have heard, is that President Trump just survived yet another assassination attempt, this time at the Trump International Golf Course in South Florida. And we thought for a second about maybe changing the video. Do we need to cover it? But I actually think that this interview happening just hours before makes it even more impactful and once again shows that this is what they always try to do, right? Even in the wake of the Trump assassination attempt, the media's biggest enemy was not, hey, maybe our rhetoric is a little bit inflammatory, or maybe people on our side, or maybe we need to just stop this kind of name-calling situation, or maybe we need to stop demonizing each other so badly. Even in that case, they still made the biggest boogeyman in America to be right-wing violence. Even though all this left-wing violence is happening in front of your face, no, the biggest issue is that, you know, they're talking about dogs and cats, and that's somehow gonna incite violence, whatever. But that said, I'm Vince for RTM News. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And that said, take a look at this.
We condemn all violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said is that this town has suffered terribly under the policies of Kamala Harris. Now, you just accused me of inciting violence against the community when all that I've done is surface the complaints of my constituents, people who are suffering because of Kamala Harris's policies. Are we not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence? We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. They are in the country through what's called temporary protective status.
Right.
That is when Kamala Harris waved a magic amnesty wand, taking people and giving them legal status. That is not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further caused.
But it's not illegal.
So this is currently the CNN attack against Trump and JD Vance, is that they are inciting violence. They keep saying this, inciting violence or potential violence against the Haitian migrants by bringing up the allegations of, you know, the things that are actually happening in Springfield, Ohio. Now, that said, obviously, we thoroughly and 100% condemn any acts of violence, but it's very ironic to be doing this, or if you want to play this thought exercise, because in that case, then every time that CNN says Trump is a threat to democracy or compares him to Hitler or does all these things, are you then in that case inciting potential violence against President Trump? Because if we're going to use that logic against us, then we should also use it against you. And again, this is far from a hypothetical situation, considering Trump just survived an assassination attempt, obviously, in Butler, Pennsylvania back in July. And then you saw what just literally happened today, hours after this interview. And is that not the great irony of it all? As much as they say Trump is inciting violence, seems to me the violence is happening against him, right? And if you're going to use this logic, then in that case, by their own metric of thinking, CNN is partially responsible by their logic of the things that just happened to Trump in July and also today. today. So that said, you just saw that interview, the fear-mongering over what JD Vance is saying, what Trump is saying may potentially incite violence against Haitian migrants. Meanwhile, here is the very real situation in the United States of America today.
He returned to the White House, but this event was not on any kind of public schedule, so it's not clear how this alleged lone gunman knew the former president would be playing golf today, and also at what time. We heard the president was on the fifth hole on the front nine at Trump International. How did this lone gunman know? Perhaps he followed the motorcade. Of course, when the former president travels, he travels in a motorcade. He has Secret Service protection. But that is one of the things. If this was another potential assassin, how he had this information about where former President Trump was playing golf. Of course, he owns numerous golf courses in the state of Florida, Doral in the Miami area, but of course, Trump International is the closest to Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach, where he resides. That is one of the big questions we hope to hear in this press conference coming up shortly, Eric.
Yeah, and even if you don't know exactly what his schedule is, if you're a local, you know that the former president plays golf. You can obviously see a police and a Secret Service presence. You can see the motorcade, and you know when that is happening. And we see a motorcade right now going over the bridge from Palm Beach over the bridge over to West Palm Beach.
It's not a far trip.
Anyway, so long story short is President Trump, they were on the fifth hole. They were about to go up to putt. And the way Steve Witkoff, now, just as a little bit of background, Arthel, I happened to go to breakfast with Steve Witkoff and another friend. Both had exactly the same story, which was that they heard pop, 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 pop. And Steve went into great specificity and great detail as to what happened right after. Within seconds, the Secret Service pounced on the president, covered him. You had snipers with tripods. They knew the direction where the shots had been fired, and they had eyes on the location where the shots had been fired. And long story short, they were. I have confirmed with both the president and with Mr. Witkoff that the gun has been found. They identified it as an AK-47. And thanks to Secret Service drone video.
Right, so that exactly is a classic case of media narrative versus reality. Okay, so the media narrative is that, the whole left-wing side is completely peaceful, and the only ones inciting violence, quote-unquote, with their divisive rhetoric is President Trump. It's the right-wingers, it's the MAGA people, and then the reality is what? Shots were literally just fired hours ago at President Trump, and not too long after CNN did this exact interview claiming that it was our side that was inciting the violence. Very, very typical, folks. I don't know what else to expect. But that said, we are glad certainly that President Trump is okay. We pray for his safety. I think it's very obvious at this point. God is the only one protecting him because Secret Service, once again, allowed something like this to happen. Very mysterious. The FBI still has not really given us the answers from the first assassination attempt, and it is what it is, but we're glad he's okay. With that said, folks, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below, and until next time, I've been Vince with RTM News. Peace.